The Beverly Hills Hotel, room 237, October 12, 1954. Grace Kelly knocked softly on the door, expecting to rehearse lines for tomorrow's crucial scene in Green Fire. Her co-star Stuart Granger had called an hour earlier, claiming he wanted to run through their dialogue one more time. When the door opened, Grace stepped into a nightmare that would haunt her forever. Stuart wasn't alone, and what Grace witnessed in that hotel room wasn't rehearsal. It was something so disturbing that it would destroy one of Hollywood's biggest stars and reveal a secret that the studio system had been hiding for decades. Grace stood frozen in the doorway, her script falling from her trembling hands. She wanted to run, to pretend she hadn't seen anything, to protect herself from what she now knew. But Grace Kelly had never been a woman who ran from the truth, no matter how ugly it was. What she did in the next 5 minutes would end Stuart Granger's career, expose a network of predators in Hollywood, and prove that even the most elegant ice princess could become a fierce protector when innocent lives were at stake. The golden age of Hollywood was built on secrets. Grace Kelly was about to destroy them all. Stuart Granger was 41 years old and one of the most successful leading men in Hollywood. British, charming, devastatingly handsome, he had starred opposite some of the biggest names in the business. His contract with MGM was worth millions. Grace had worked with him for 3 weeks on Green Fire, and while she found him professional, there was something about Stuart that had always made her uncomfortable. The way he looked at the younger actors on set, the way conversations stopped when he entered a room, the whispered warnings from crew members that she had dismissed as Hollywood gossip. Now she understood why. In the hotel room, Grace saw Stuart with a young man who couldn't have been more than 16 years old. The boy was partially dressed, clearly distressed, and trying to leave. Stuart was blocking his path to the door. "Please, Mr. Granger," the boy was saying. "I want to go home. You said this was just about reading lines." Stuart's voice was different than Grace had ever heard it. Cold, threatening. "You're not going anywhere until we finish what we started, Tommy. You want to work in this town, don't you?" That's when Grace stepped into the room. Both Stuart and the boy turned toward her. Stuart's face went white when he saw Grace standing there, taking in the entire scene. "Grace," Stuart said, his voice suddenly normal, charming. "You're early. Tommy here was just leaving." The boy, Tommy, looked at Grace with eyes full of fear and desperation. He was thin, probably from Oklahoma or Kansas, one of the thousands of young men who came to Hollywood every year dreaming of stardom. Grace realized immediately what was happening. This wasn't the first time Stuart had done this, and it wouldn't be the last unless someone stopped him. "Tommy," Grace said quietly. "Come here." The boy hesitated, looking between Grace and Stuart. "It's okay," Grace said. "Come stand by me." Tommy moved quickly to Grace's side. She could feel him shaking. Stuart forced a laugh. "Grace, I think there's been a misunderstanding here." "No," Grace said, her voice like ice. "There's been no misunderstanding. I can see exactly what's happening here." Stuart's mask finally dropped. His expression became hard, dangerous. "Grace, you need to be very careful about what you think you saw, and what you think you're going to do about it." Grace looked at Stuart Granger, movie star, leading man, predator, and felt no fear, only disgust. "Tommy," she said, not taking her eyes off Stuart. "Get your things, we're leaving." Grace. Stuart started. "We're leaving now," Grace said firmly. "And tomorrow, I'm going to make some phone calls." Stuart stepped closer to Grace, trying to intimidate her. But Grace Kelly had faced down studio heads, demanding directors and the pressure of Hollywood stardom. She wasn't afraid of one man, no matter how powerful he thought he was. "You don't understand how this business works," Stuart said quietly. "You don't understand what happens to people who don't keep their mouths shut." Grace smiled, and it was the coldest smile Stuart Granger had ever seen. "Actually, Stuart, I understand exactly how this business works. But I also understand something you don't." "What's that?" "I understand that some things are more important than careers. Some things are more important than staying quiet. And protecting children from men like you is one of them." Grace took Tommy's arm gently. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you out of here." As they walked toward the door, Stuart made one final threat. "Grace, if you make this public, it won't just be my career that's over. You'll destroy yourself too. No studio will ever work with someone who can't keep secrets. No director will trust you. Your career will be finished." Grace paused at the door. When she turned back to Stuart, her expression was perfectly composed. "Then I guess we'll find out what matters more to me, won't we? My career or doing what's right?" Grace and Tommy left the room together. In the elevator, Tommy broke down crying. "Miss Kelly, I'm so sorry you had to see that. I'm so embarrassed." Grace put her arm around the boy's shoulders. "Tommy, you have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing that happened in that room was your fault. Do you understand me?" Tommy nodded, wiping his eyes. "How long has this been going on?" Grace asked gently. 3 months, Tommy whispered. "He said he could get me parts. He said this was how the business worked. He said if I told anyone I'd never work in Hollywood again." Grace felt sick. 3 months. This child had been manipulated and abused for 3 months. "Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Are there other boys? Other young men that Stuart has done this to?" Tommy nodded miserably. "At least 5 or 6 that I know about. We talk to each other sometimes. We're all scared." Grace made a decision that would change everything. "Tommy, I want you to call those other boys. Tonight. Tell them to meet us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at the Beverly Hills Police Department. Can you do that?" Tommy looked terrified. "Miss Kelly, we can't go to the police. Mr. Granger has friends there. He has friends everywhere. They won't believe us." Grace took Tommy's hands in hers. "Tommy, listen to me. I'm Grace Kelly. I have friends too. And tomorrow we're going to end this." That night, Grace made a series of phone calls that would rock Hollywood to its core. The first call was to her agent, who tried to talk her out of whatever she was planning. "Grace, think about this carefully. Stuart Granger is a major star. If you make accusations against him without ironclad proof—" "I have proof," Grace interrupted. "I saw it with my own eyes. That's not enough. It's your word against his. And Grace, forgive me for being blunt, but you're an actress. He's a leading man with 20 years in this business and connections everywhere." Grace felt her anger rising. "So you're saying I should stay quiet? Let him continue to abuse children because he's more important than they are?" Her agent sighed. "I'm saying you should be smart about this. If you want to help these boys, there are quieter ways." Grace hung up on him. Her second call was to her old friend from Philadelphia, FBI agent Robert McNeil. They had grown up together, and Bob had always told Grace she could call him if she ever needed help in Hollywood. "Bob, it's Grace. I need your help with something serious." "What's going on, Gracie?" Grace told him everything. The hotel room, Tommy, the threats, what she suspected about other victims. Bob listened without interrupting. When Grace finished, he was quiet for a moment. "Grace, what you're describing sounds like a pattern of predatory behavior. If this guy has been doing this for years, there will be evidence. Financial records, hotel registrations, maybe even photographs. What can you do?" "I can't open an official FBI investigation based on what you've told me, but I can make some calls. I know people in the LAPD who aren't on any studio payroll. Clean cops who would handle this right." Grace felt a surge of hope. "Will you do that?" "Already making the calls," Bob said. "Grace, you're doing the right thing, but you need to be prepared. This is going to get ugly before it gets better." Her third call was to Hedda Hopper, the most powerful gossip columnist in Hollywood. "Hedda, it's Grace Kelly. I have a story for you, the biggest story you've ever printed." "I'm listening, darling." Grace told Hedda everything. The hotel room, Tommy, the other victims, Stuart's threats. Hedda was quiet for a long moment. "Grace, honey, this is explosive, but it's also dangerous. Stuart Granger has a lot of powerful friends." "So do I," Grace said. "Are you sure you want to do this? Because once this comes out, there's no going back. Your life will never be the same." Grace looked out the window of her Beverly Hills apartment at the city spread out below her. Somewhere out there were young men living in fear, being victimized by powerful men who thought they were untouchable. "Hedda, I want you to print the story. But I want you to wait until tomorrow afternoon. I need time to get the victims to safety first." "What do you mean, safety?" "I'm going to put them up in a hotel under assumed names until after they testify. Stuart has connections everywhere. I won't have these boys threatened or hurt because of what I'm doing." Hedda was impressed. "Grace, you've thought this through like a detective." "I've had to. These boys' lives depend on getting this right." Her fourth call was to the district attorney's office. Grace had met DA William McKesson at a charity event the previous month. "Mr. McKesson, this is Grace Kelly. I need to report a crime." Grace spent 40 minutes on the phone with the DA going over every detail of what she had witnessed. McKesson asked sharp questions, probing for weaknesses in her account. "Miss Kelly, You realize that if we move forward with this, you'll be the key witness in a case against one of Hollywood's biggest stars. I understand that. And you understand that his lawyers will try to destroy your credibility. They'll dig into every aspect of your life, looking for anything they can use to discredit you. Grace had already considered this. Mr. McKesson, let them try. I've lived my life with integrity. I'm not afraid of scrutiny. What about your career? This could seriously damage your standing in Hollywood. Grace was quiet for a moment. Mr. McKesson, if standing up for abused children damages my career, then maybe I don't want that career anyway. Her final call was to Tommy. She had gotten his number from the hotel registry, where he had signed in as Stewart's script consultant. Tommy, it's Grace Kelly. Are you all right? Tommy's voice was shaky. Miss Kelly, I'm scared. What if Mr. Granger finds out I talked to you? Tommy, listen to me carefully. Pack a bag right now. I'm sending a car to pick you up. You're going to stay at a safe hotel tonight, under a different name. Miss Kelly, I can't afford. I'm paying for everything. Tommy, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. Good. Now I need you to call those other boys you told me about. Tell them to pack bags too. Tell them Grace Kelly is going to protect them, and tomorrow we're going to stop Stewart Granger forever. The next morning, Grace arrived at the Beverly Hills Police Department with 6 young men, including Tommy. They were all scared, but they were there. Grace had also brought something else. A tape recorder. Miss Kelly, Detective Ray Parker said as they gathered in a conference room, this is highly irregular. We don't usually allow civilians to record police interviews. This isn't a usual case, Grace replied calmly. These boys are accusing one of Hollywood's biggest stars of serious crimes. I want everything on record. What followed was 4 hours of testimony that would destroy Stewart Granger's career and change Hollywood forever. Each young man told his story. The promises of movie roles, the manipulation, the threats, the abuse. Grace listened to every word, her face growing paler with each testimony. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a systematic pattern of abuse spanning years. Detective Parker was clearly uncomfortable. Grace could see he was reluctant to move forward with charges against such a powerful figure. Detective, Grace said during a break, are you going to arrest Stewart Granger or not? Miss Kelly, these are serious accusations, but they're also difficult to prove. It's the word of these boys against a major movie star. It's the word of 6 victims and 1 eyewitness, Grace interrupted. I saw him threatening one of these boys. I heard him admit what he was doing. But Miss Kelly, you have to understand the position this puts the department in. Grace stood up. Detective Parker, let me explain something to you. By tonight, this story will be on the front page of every newspaper in America. Heda Hopper is printing it. The district attorney is opening an investigation. The question isn't whether Stewart Granger is going to be destroyed. The question is whether the Beverly Hills Police Department is going to be on the right side of history. Detective Parker looked uncomfortable, but he made the call. That afternoon, Stewart Granger was arrested at his Beverly Hills mansion on charges of statutory rape, sexual assault, and extortion. The story exploded across Hollywood like a bomb. MGM immediately dropped Stewart from all upcoming projects and canceled his contract. Other studios followed suit. Within 48 hours, Stewart Granger couldn't get a meeting in Hollywood, let alone a role. But the real shock came when other victims began coming forward. Not just young men who had been abused by Stewart, but victims of other powerful men in Hollywood. Grace Kelly had opened a floodgate. The studio system, which had protected predators for decades, found itself under attack from all sides. Investigators, journalists, and brave victims were exposing the dark underbelly of Hollywood's golden age. Stewart Granger's trial began 3 months later. Grace testified for 2 days, describing exactly what she had seen in that hotel room. Under cross-examination, Stewart's lawyers tried to destroy her credibility. Miss Kelly, isn't it true that you have a history of making accusations against powerful men in Hollywood? Grace looked directly at the jury. If standing up for children who are being abused is making accusations, then yes, I have that history, and I'm proud of it. Stewart Granger was convicted on 6 counts of sexual assault and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He served 8 years and died in obscurity in 1993. But the real impact of Grace Kelly's courage went far beyond one man's conviction. The scandal led to new safeguards in Hollywood for young actors. Studios were required to provide chaperones for anyone under 18. Background checks became mandatory for anyone working with minors. Most importantly, it sent a message that even the most powerful men in Hollywood were not untouchable if they preyed on the vulnerable. Tommy, the boy Grace had saved that night, never became an actor, but he did become a social worker, dedicating his life to protecting children from abuse. In 1975, 21 years after that night at the Beverly Hills Hotel, Tommy wrote Grace a letter. "Dear Miss Kelly, I know you're a princess now, and your life is very different, but I wanted you to know that not a day goes by that I don't think about what you did for me and the other boys. You saved us. Not just from Stuart Granger, but from a life of shame and silence. You taught us that our lives mattered, that we deserved protection, that we deserved justice. I work with abused children now, and I tell them all the same thing you told me that night. It's not your fault, and someone will believe you, and someone will fight for you. Thank you for being that someone for us." Grace kept that letter until the day she died. In her final interview in 1982, Grace was asked about the moment that defined her career. "People always ask about my movies, my Oscar, my marriage to Rainier," she said. "But the moment I'm most proud of happened in a hotel room in 1954. I saw something terrible happening to a child, and I had a choice. I could stay silent and protect my career, or I could speak up and protect that child. The choice was actually very easy." The interviewer asked if she had any regrets about destroying Stuart Granger's career. Grace's expression hardened. "I have no regrets about stopping a predator. My only regret is that it took me 3 months to find out what was happening. How many children might have been saved if someone had spoken up sooner?" That question haunted Grace for the rest of her life. Stuart Granger never admitted guilt, even after his conviction. But years later, one of his former associates told investigators that Grace had been right about the scope of the abuse. "Stuart used to brag about it," the associate said. "He said Hollywood was full of desperate kids who would do anything for a part. He said it was like shooting fish in a barrel. He thought he was untouchable because he was a star." Grace Kelly proved him wrong. The night Grace walked into that hotel room, she could have pretended she hadn't seen anything. She could have protected her career, avoided the scandal, stayed silent like so many others had. Instead, she chose to be a hero. That choice cost her friendships, movie roles, and the comfort of staying neutral, but it saved lives, changed an industry, and proved that sometimes one person's courage can make all the difference. Grace Kelly won an Academy Award, became a princess, and lived a life of fairy tale glamour. But the moment that truly made her legendary happened in a hotel room where she chose to protect children instead of protecting herself. If this story inspired you, share it with others who need to understand the power of speaking up. Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments. Would you have had the courage to do what Grace Kelly did? Don't miss our next video where we reveal another shocking secret about Grace Kelly's heroism, the time she single-handedly prevented a tragedy that could have killed hundreds of people. Remember, heroes aren't born. They're made in moments when ordinary people choose to do extraordinary things. Grace Kelly chose to be extraordinary when it mattered most.